A dystopian planet ravaged by waves of deadly radiation, and one lone survivor attempting to restore the land. Will they succeed, or become just another memory of the life that once thrived here? My name is Graeldon, and I'm reviewing Steam games in alphabetical order to find the hidden gems among the piles of garbage, and today's game is 0xFF. Let's begin. Released on the 28th of March 2023, you would be forgiven for thinking otherwise, as 0xFF has been stylized to look like a game that wouldn't be out of place on the PlayStation 1, with one notable exception. They've added ray tracing. Yeah, you know, that technology that's used to simulate light and reflections? Yeah, they added that to a game with PS1 graphics. It's an impressive feat, although I'm not sure it actually adds that much to the game, because they've had to also stylize the reflections themselves. Gotta keep that aesthetic, you know? And it is very thematic though, because a large portion of the game has to do with reflections. More on that later. For now, let's look at the starting experience. I say starting experience instead of main menu because, well, there isn't one. At the start of the game, you're shown a simplified overlay that displays the basic controls. The lack of text makes this a little confusing for anyone not familiar with PC games, but most experienced players will know exactly what's going on here. You can also adjust mouse sensitivity and the ray tracing quality here by opening this menu with escape once you're in the actual game. Speaking of, only a couple of seconds later, we're in. Welcome to the home base. There's a chair, a table with an old school monitor, a strange briefcase on the ground, as well as a few shelves. Heading outside, you'll see a helicopter, a vast, bleak, empty expanse, and pain. A lot of pain. That is the radiation, and roughly every 30 seconds it will shave off approximately a quarter of your health. The only way to heal is to cower inside one of the few bunkers scattered across the landscape. It's a shame they didn't think of a better way to balance this mechanic, because the only way to progress is to go outside and be hurt by the radiation, and healing basically involves not playing the game. And healing from low health can take around a minute or two, which is just long enough to make you wish you were playing something actually fun. At the end of the day, the goal here is to find and fix the source of the radiation and make the world habitable again. To do this, you'll need to venture from one safe location to another until you eventually reach the end goal. You'll also need to collect and manage resources as you complete your journey, because arriving at the final destination without the necessary tools will almost certainly spell doom. Which begs the question, what happens if you die? Well, welcome to the reason that I almost gave up on this game. There are no checkpoints or save files. If you die, you'll reset all the way back to the beginning. It doesn't matter if you're 10 minutes in or an hour in. In some ways, I think this is true to the PlayStation 1 gaming experience. If you haven't lived through the anxiety-riddled trauma of trying to complete a game like Crash Bandicoot in a single sitting because your memory card was full and you couldn't save, can you really call yourself a gamer? Well, yes, because that's called gatekeeping and we don't do that around here. Those were dark times. Anyway, the moral of the story is that 0xFF has no saves or checkpoints, and it sucks. Like, really sucks. In terms of gameplay and mechanics, there honestly isn't much to do other than to move and to pick things up. As it turns out, the briefcase thing we saw earlier is actually a battery which can be used to power the nearby helicopter. So with a method of transport available, the question is, where the heck are we going? If you head back inside, there's actually a small cartridge on the table that when inserted into the monitor plays a small piece of looping footage, showing a white, almost invisible streak shooting through the sky. Say hello to mega radiation. This flashes through the sky every 30 seconds and is responsible for the general radiation you'll be suffering from. Normal radiation will hit you wherever you are and actually does scaling damage based on how close to the line of mega radiation you are. If you happen to be too close, or heaven forbid, directly in the path of the mega radiation, you'll instantly die. So that's fun. Circling back to the question of where we're going, well, this is our clue. So we're going to be following this bad boy back towards the source. Thankfully, the mega radiation follows roughly the same path every time, but it'll still kill you if you're even a pixel too close. So, let's climb into the helicopter and head off. Before too long, you'll encounter a shelter, and it's here that you'll find a radiation suit and an extra battery, plus a diagram showing the nearby panels reflecting the radiation. This is a clue that will help us later. Carrying on further, you'll encounter a river. Better make sure you have enough fuel because trying to swim in the water is a death sentence. Trust me on that one, okay? I had a few attempts where I didn't quite make it across, and this allowed me to witness the joyous scene of the helicopter slowly sinking beneath the waves. Should you actually make it to the other side though, you'll find a shelter with a few more batteries. If your pathing was perfect and you still have your helicopter, heading further from here will see you arrive at an abandoned train station, where another radiation suit, a battery, and the first mirror await. At this point, we're actually into the endgame section, weirdly enough. And so far, it might not actually have sounded so bad, but the amount of trial and error it took to reach this point is actually wild. So, you can load the mirror and the battery onto the train and then set off. Along the path, there's a pool of radiation, but as long as you're wearing a suit, you'll survive, but the suit will be destroyed. If you don't have a suit, well, see you back at home base, I guess. Up ahead, past a second helicopter that's just chilling by the side of the tracks, the path splits in two. Going to the right takes us to another shelter and another mirror. It's here that you'll also find the mirror array, clearly broken with 3 panels missing. Fixing this is the final goal of the game, but we're currently still down a mirror. So by heading backwards to the intersection, you'll spot another shelter off in the distance. Over there is another battery and a suit with half strength remaining. Heading back to the train once again, we can head over the bridge and into a radiation zone. While inside this area, you'll take constant damage, so getting in and out again quickly is critical. At the far end lies the final mirror. You will need to load this into the train and get back out before you succumb to the gradual radiation damage. However, you won't make it. No matter what you do, you'll die here. Every damn time. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes of playtime to reach this point, so dying here is a huge loss of time and energy, and it was honestly super disheartening. My morale was at an all-time low, and it was after several attempts that all ended in failure at this point that I started questioning if it was even possible. So after a bit of digging, I did find a video of someone completing the game, but they only managed to do it by abusing the hell out of bugs that had been patched. But they linked a second video of an actual legitimate run, so maybe there was a chance after all. Without spoiling too much just yet, I tried to copy their method, but it ended in failure every single time. So what the heck was going wrong? Well, a few days after this particular video was published, the dev released a patch, increasing the damage from the radiation and hence the difficulty. So the methods no longer worked. I was on my own. But I was armed with new knowledge, so maybe it was possible after all. I was so close that I could almost taste the victory. All I needed was one good run with no mistakes, and to put into practice everything I had learned. So, if you don't want to be spoiled with the solution, skip ahead to the timecode on screen. On the other hand, if you're curious or looking for a guide, then watch on, my friend. Alright, here's the step-by-step of actions you need to take to beat the game. And as far as I can tell, this is the only viable method. Firstly, from the home base, you need to go backwards. On foot. Yep. Turns out there's a hidden base that can be reached by following the mega radiation. You'll need to carefully time crossing over the no man's land underneath it, but awaiting in the bunker on the other end is a battery with green charge. You need to bring this all the way back to home base and then load it into the helicopter. Load in the other 2 batteries like normal and then fly towards base 2. Keep flying past it until the batteries run out and then land. Discard the 2 depleted batteries and then sprint to the shelter. Grab the suit and the spare battery, heal up and then sprint back to the chopper. You'll now have enough fuel to fly directly to the train station, avoiding the river base completely. Carefully time your flight to pass through the mountain pass and you're good to go. At the train station, load up per normal, but, and I cannot stress this enough, do not take the suit. This suit is needed in order to survive the radiation zone later. Instead, climb aboard the loaded train and drive right up to the edge of the radiation on the tracks. Hop out and then make a mad sprint for the lakeside shelter. Grab the suit and the battery from here and then start the sprint back to the train, dropping the battery off at the helicopter on the way. You should make it to the train with enough suit health left to be able to pass through the radiation safely. You may need to head back to the lake shelter again to heal first, but the next step is to take the helicopter, now charged with both batteries, and fly back to the train station. Now you can grab the suit that we left behind earlier and fly back to the train. Well, most of the way back. You will run out of fuel, but that's fine. Jump back into the train and head straight forwards into the radiation zone. Grab the mirror off the stand at the far end and throw it into the train carriage, and then head out as quickly as you can. Your suit will get shredded, but with a mad dash back to the lake shelter, you should survive. Now all that's left to do is to change the tracks and head to the mountain shelter to begin repairs. You want to work swiftly but carefully here, as you need to not be anywhere near the mirror array when the mega radiation passes through. So you have a 30-second window at most to get anything done. Firstly, grab the 2 ladders one at a time and get them into position. The shorter ladder will get you up onto the platform, and the longer one will reach up high enough for the repairs. Next, one by one, carry the mirrors all the way up and they will snap into place. This is possibly the most awkward mechanic I've ever experienced, as while carrying the mirror, you can't see where you're going. Add on top of this the fact that climbing the ladders normally doesn't work as intended, and the very real risk of somehow picking up the ladder that you're standing on instead of the mirror, and you're probably going to be here for a while. That said, you'll want to be cautious, as one wrong move now means having to repeat the entire run. Slowly and carefully, you'll get the mirrors into place, and with the array fixed and turned on, the array's activated. It rotates into position, deflecting a mega radiation beam back to the source, destroying it. And after a few moments, the sky clears and the world returns to normal. And of course, as one final slap in the face, there's not even an ending. No credits, no fade to black, no thank you for playing message. So take a moment to go and wander the wasteland for a while and contemplate what the heck you're doing with your life. It seems to be that for Sandstrom, the dev of 0xFF, with PS1 graphics comes PS1 levels of brutal difficulty. To which I ask, why? Why forego literal decades of improvements of game design and mechanics? And no, I don't mean microtransactions, those can bugger right off. I guess what really bothers me the most about this game is the lack of checkpoints or save mechanics. Their addition would transform this game from a slogfest filled with hours of literal backtracking to an enjoyable puzzle exploration experience, albeit a slightly convoluted one given the final solution. Complexity isn't bad, but unrewarded repetition most definitely is, and that's the biggest sin that 0xFF has committed. That and the lack of any kind of real closure after beating the game. When combined with other annoyances like an inability to lower the helicopter, you have to wait for it to gradually fall, playing through the game simply becomes an exercise in frustration. One of my favourite things that tells you quite a bit about how the game intentionally tries to lead you astray and obfuscate the correct path is the presence of boats. Yes, this is the first time I've mentioned them. There's one near a pond at the very start of the game. Every boat in this game is useless. Utterly useless. The first one goes nowhere remotely useful as it's confined to a small body of water. The second is on the river, but you can't reach it without either attempting to swim and dying or jumping into it from the helicopter. There's a third one by the lake at the end that also goes nowhere useful whatsoever. So yay for intentionally misleading game mechanics. They even put it into the trailer and screenshots for the game to make it look like it has an actual use. As one of the few people who have actually finished this game and are therefore something of an authority on the topic, boats are useless. That said, I would be super appreciative if someone could tell me what the heck 0xFF is a reference to. As far as I can tell, it's a hexadecimal code that represents a bunch of ones, or possibly used to refer to either a white or transparent colour, which may have a link to either the art style or radiation theme of the game respectively. Having only done a bit of research, that's the best I've got, so if you have a better answer, please let me know. The last thing to mention is the music and sound effects. There are barely any sound effects, and there is one piece of ambient sci-fi music that plays on repeat. All of the music you've been hearing has come from Epidemic Sound, which thankfully has a great library of fitting music. I've used them in many of my videos, and I've always been able to find something that has the right tone and feel to match the gameplay and review. Also, hashtag not an ad, but they are honestly one of the few companies that I would take as a sponsor because I love their platform. Anyway, with all of that in mind, my final rating for 0xFF is carrying a mirror up a ladder out of 10. What should be an easy task is actually incredibly frustrating and rage-inducing. Thanks for watching. These wonderful channel members on screen are literally keeping the channel alive, and I'd especially like to thank our 2 Knights of the Holy Grail, Freaky Feline and Loveheart Gonzi. Supporting the crusade is only $1 per month and your soul for eternity, but let's not worry about the fine print. Lastly, I want to thank you for joining me on this weird gaming adventure through the depths of Steam. If you made it this far, here's a sneak peek of the next game. And until next time, take care.